They said, family fixes everything. At 2:17 a.m. my cameras proved the opposite, showing my own brother grinning into the lens as he hacked my life to pieces. Tonight I won't beg for peace. I'm going to plant consequences and make sure they take root. My name is Isla, and this is the night my family learned I don't bend anymore. The shriek of my phone saws through a dead heavy sleep at 2:17 a.m., my security app pulsing crimson. Someone's at the greenhouse. I yank on yesterday's jeans, grit still caked at the knees, snatch my keys, and gun it through 11 endless minutes of blacktop and dread. My headlights sweep the entrance and my stomach caves. The padlock dangles sheared clean. I leave the car crooked, beams cutting a white path as I shoulder the gate. Glass crackles under my boots like thin ice. Each step reveals a new wound. Hanging baskets severed, orchids butchered down their throats, rare succulents flattened beneath boot treads. Hartwell Properties $22,000 order. Months of careful propagation, annihilated. I stumble to the back office, praying the system caught something, anything. The monitor wakes under my fingers. I scroll back with a shaking thumb and there he is. Tyler. My brother. He stares straight into the camera, raises my own garden shears like a toast and begins. No frenzy. No accident. 2 full hours of deliberate ruin, with little glances up to make sure I'd see the author signed every page of this destruction. A week earlier we'd been at my parents' table, mashed potatoes traveling, Dad clearing his throat in that way he does before awkward decrees. Isla, sweetheart, Mom began, soft and insistent. Tyler's between jobs. Your greenhouse would be perfect for him. You're thriving. I put my fork down. I can't add staff. And he knows nothing about horticulture. Dad chuckled without warmth. How hard can watering be? I swallowed the lecture about pH bands, microclimates, feed ratios. I need trained help, I said. Hartwell's too big to risk. Tyler smiled thin and said he understood. The next morning the messages started. I always think I'm better. Must be nice being the favorite. After 3 days of rising venom I blocked him. My parents called daily, disappointment heavy in every voicemail, while I worked 16-hour stretches to bring Hartwell to life, and to carve a chunk off my loan. The night I finished transplanting the last specimens I checked voicemail. Tyler's voice, bourbon blunted and mean. You'll regret choosing your plants over family. Wait. Standing amid the wreck I finally understood what he'd promised. I force my hands to become instruments. Photo, photo, photo. Every smashed pot, every ravaged bench. Then I call. I need to report a break-in and major vandalism. I have clear video IDing the perpetrator. While the sirens draw lines across the dark, I drift through what used to be my main house of glass and green. 4 years ago I signed these acres with money earned on triple shifts since high school. I still remember the loan officer's smirk melting when I slid over a penny-tight business plan. On the monitor now, Tyler swings a hammer into a run of terracotta. Calculated, not chaotic. Not rage. Malice. Something locks into place inside me. I brush soil off my palms. It ends today, I tell the empty aisles. My voice is steady. Dawn kisses the edges of the sky as the cruisers arrive. I step through the ruin to meet them. Statements. Screenshots. Copies. Hours later, with the report in a folder on the passenger seat, I pull into my parents' drive at noon. The columns look smaller than they did when I was a kid. I ring. Mom answers in a Tuesday cardigan meant for Sunday. Isla, we weren't expecting. I need everyone, I say. Including Tyler. Dad's in his recliner, paper folded squarely. Tyler sprawls on the couch, phone in hand. Nobody stands. My greenhouse was destroyed last night, I say. The Hartwell order is gone. Mom gasps. Did you call the police? I look at Tyler. His face is bored porcelain. They have the footage, I say. You, he says spread-handed. I have no idea. I mirror my screen to the TV in 2 taps. There he is, lifting the shears in salute, then sawing through orchids. Mom's hand leaps to her mouth. Dad's grip wrinkles newsprint. Tyler watches his own image, rage and dread passing like clouds. Turn it off, Dad says. I pause, not close. They've got everything, I say. They're filing criminal mischief and B&E. Silence pulls taut until Mom tries to braid it. We can handle this privately, as a family. Dad clears his throat. You're upset. The greenhouse is insured, right? I'll cover the deductible. Just tell them it was a misunderstanding. You don't want this on Tyler's record. A laugh cracks loose, sharp as a shard. You still don't get it. This isn't about money. Tyler's voice climbs. Then what? Punishment? Revenge? Consequences, I say. Something you've never met. Mom slides between us. We're family. I test the word. Was it family when you gave him a key to my house without telling me? For emergencies? Their glance answers for them. How long? Dad shifts. Since you bought the place, but for years, I say. 4 years of unlocked doors I didn't know about. It's just a key, Tyler says, standing. Just plants, right? I counter. Just business. I lift my phone. Michael called. You've been telling people I owe you a slice. That this was supposed to be family. Tyler steps closer. It should have been. Dad helped your loan. Mom helped your name. And when I needed one thing, I look at my hands, soil still sunk into the lines no matter how hard I scrubbed this morning. Mom's are pristine arcs, no callus, no scar. These hands built. Those hands take. I'm not dropping the charges, I say. Dad reaches for his checkbook. Name your price. Damages plus extra. My eyes flick to the mantle collage. His milestones in full color. Graduation, first car, ribbon, college acceptance. My business license photo tiny and off to the side. Some things aren't for sale, I tell him. My phone buzzes. Lisa, I saw Tyler yelling last week. I'll give a statement. Michael, the way he spoke to you at the supplier wasn't normal. I'll testify. Mr. Grayson from the bank. Your plan was solid from day one. We stand behind you. Hartwell's PM. Take the time you need. We hired you for integrity. I think of the first saplings I planted alone while they took Tyler to Florida. You don't understand what you're doing, Dad warns. This changes everything. Good, I say. Everything needs changing. Tyler's mask slides off. You always thought you were better, he spits. With your precious plants, your self-made act. Mom reaches, he shrugs her off. I'm glad I did it, he shouts. You needed knocking down. Dad rises, too late. What were you going to do, call the cops? Oh wait. He laughs, brittle. Mom pleads. He didn't mean it. Even a confession can't pierce the umbrella they hold over him. I never thought I was better, I say, shouldering my folder. I just worked harder. On the coffee table. Last Christmas, matching sweaters, fixed smiles. I set the frame face down. The door clicks shut behind me, quiet as a lock engaging from my side for once. I learned to love roots at 14, when a lima bean unfurled a true leaf in a classroom cup. By 16 I was selling herbs from a rickety card table, $20 in a coffee can labeled greenhouse fund. Dad laughed when I showed him agricultural zoning rules. Unrealistic. Mom patted me. What a sweet hobby. The next day Tyler rolled in with a red Mustang that cost more than my goal. I added a second job stocking shelves. For 3 years I poured coffee in the morning, hauled lumber in the afternoon, worked the garden center on weekends. 4 hours sleep, business classes over lunch, every tip into the can. When I walked into the bank at 22, the man behind the Harvard diploma barely looked up. So you want to grow plants? 3 hours later, after projections and margins and a risk matrix he hadn't expected, he offered half my request. Take it or leave it. I took it, knowing I'd build the first structure by hand. 27 acres, poor drainage, perfect southern light, land a failed developer abandoned. I bought it for 30 cents on the dollar. That first year broke me down and made me new. Rocks at dawn, stumps after work, trenches by headlamp. I slept in my truck under a tarp, rained on, sunburned, eaten alive by mosquitoes. Tyler came once, Mustang idling as I laid irrigation. You're killing yourself for this? He said, waving at mud and lumber. Looks like nothing. It's not nothing to me, I answered, and he peeled tire marks into my newly graded drive. A landscaper named Michael stopped one afternoon when I was fighting roof beams. Need a hand? He was already rolling up sleeves. We worked past midnight, fastening polycarbonate panels against winter. Most people hire crews, he said, sipping lukewarm coffee on an upturned bucket. Most people have more money than grit, I said, flexing blistered fingers. During storms, I slept on a cot inside, listening to the frame moan. When pipes burst, I replumbed for 3 straight days. When wholesalers wouldn't extend credit, I drove 12 hours round trip to buy direct. Seedlings stuffed into every truck gap. My first contract, $8,000 to renovate a hotel courtyard. Called my parents. Wonderful, Mom said, distracted. Tyler got a promotion. We're taking him to Whistler. I stood alone in a shipping container office. Invoices pinned to plywood, rows of thriving plants outside. Then Hartwell, $22,000 for a corporate HQ. I lived on placement lists and labeling, documenting each specimen. At midnight before final prep, I sat on my tailgate with a cup of coffee, moonlight frosting healthy rows. For the first time I felt successful. Then 2:17 a.m., and everything shattered. Morning after, the sun rose on wreckage and resolve. I had lists already. The insurance adjuster arrived at 9 expecting me to cry. I handed him a full inventory. Photos, purchase dates, replacement costs. Most folks aren't this thorough, he said. I'm not most folks, I said. By the time I returned from my parents, 3 cars were in the drive. My old coffee shop boss, a customer from that first card table, and Michael carrying 2 coffees and work gloves. Saw the post on the community page, the shop owner said. Figured you could use hands. We worked until sunset salvaging life from ruin. Michael matched my pace without commentary. Hartwell's PM called. We can flex the timeline. We chose you for quality and resilience. That hasn't changed. 6 weeks later in court, I wore clean work clothes still tattooed with permanent soil. Furniture polish and nerves scented the room. Tyler sat flanked by our parents, dressed for church. I testified simply, the footage spoke. The judge watched Tyler on screen, then listened to his monologue about stress, exclusion, remorse that never reached his eyes. My parents sat directly behind him, not neutral. The ruling was brisk. Full restitution, 200 hours of community service, a no-contact order. Tyler's face calcified as terms were read. I stepped into sunlight alone. The greenhouse, half reborn, waited on foundations I could trust. 2 days later, the gravel sang under the security truck at 7 sharp. I was on my second coffee. 8 cameras, I told the lead tech, showing the site plan with red X's. Every entry, parking, special focus on the new foundation. He nodded. People usually just say make it safe. I smiled. I'm done with vague. The insurance check came, $18,000. Not enough for everything, enough to start. I'd been sleeping on the office cot, guarding what I could and planning the rebuild to the penny. Security, structure, then plants in profitability order. The doorbell chimed and Catherine Daniels from the Chamber of Commerce stepped in with a basket and an envelope. We haven't met, she said, but the business community stands with you. Inside, Compt Association dues and 3 warm leads. Your resilience is impressive, she said. Not many would rebuild this fast. By noon, I was transplanting salvaged seedlings exactly according to the recovery schedule. Mom's number flashed, 4th call today. I silenced it and kept my hands moving in the soil. 10 minutes later, the tech radioed, your parents are at the gate. Please let them know I'm in critical work, I said. No interruptions. 20 minutes after that, Mom's voice threaded through the glass. She tailed a van inside. We need to talk about healing, she called. This is private property, I answered without looking up. Closed for repairs. He's your brother, she quavered. Family forgives. I stood. I'll talk when Tyler completes restitution and community service. Until then, I won't. Dad stepped forward. Pastor Williams will mediate. No, I said calmly. I've documented this visit. Please leave or I'll call the officer on my case. Their faces looked like people hearing the word no for the first time. That evening, Tyler's truck crawled past the fence despite the order. I photographed, sent it to my attorney without a caption. More bricks for the wall between past and future. 3 one-star reviews landed within an hour, stilted grammar like Mom's bridge club friends. I flagged them and moved on. The next morning, Michael arrived with coffee and bagels. Whatever we were didn't have a name yet, but it felt steady. New frame lands Tuesday, he said, scanning his tablet. Confirmed. I nodded, grateful he remembers details I don't ask him to. I'm hiring 2 part-timers next week, I said. He blinked. You've never wanted employees. I can't build this alone anymore, I said, the words both admission and expansion. And the Westridge corporate contract needs more hands. He looked up. Westridge. They called this morning. The Business Journal piece about the court case made the rounds. He grinned. That's twice Hartwell. I know, I said, and for the first time in weeks I smiled without forcing it. First extra loan payment goes out Friday. We walked the property, sketching where the expanded beds would live. Through the chain link, a few country club faces stared, pinched and curious. Your mother asked me yesterday to talk sense into you, Michael said lightly, tightening a brace. I paused. And? I told her you were right. Pressure gathered behind my eyes. I blinked it clear. They'll try everyone, I said. Thanks for not needing an explanation. A former seasonal texted to ask about shifts. A supplier offered credit to help the rebuild. Cameras watched every approach. Neighboring businesses swapped numbers. More eyes when mine weren't there. The frame delivery was scheduled, 2 hires starting Monday, the Westridge contract signed. Tyler took what I made and accidentally forced me to build stronger. I looked over the new planting calendar, then granted myself 6 hours of sleep, the most since that night. Tomorrow, more growth by design, more boundaries held, more building toward what should be, not just what was. For the first time since the attack, I slept without checking cameras. 6 weeks of quiet no's later, Mom texted while I was finishing inventory. Family dinner, 7 p.m. time to make peace. My stomach tightened. It smelled like a setup. You don't have to go, Michael said when I called. If you do, I'm coming. I decided to go, and to bring proof of every boundary crossed since court. The house looked copy-pasted from my childhood. Pristine lawn, polished knocker, centered wreath. Mom opened before we knocked, smile too bright. Isla. And you must be Michael. The dining room sparkled. China, crystal, a stage lighted for contrition. Dad hovered by his chair with a counterfeit smile. Good to see you, princess, he said, dusting off a nickname a decade old. The table was set for 5. Footsteps padded in. Tyler entered with a casserole dish and practiced humility. The restraining order is explicit. 500 feet. What is this? I asked, voice going cool. We thought it was time to talk like adults, Mom rushed. Michael's palm found the small of my back. Dad watched that touch with a tight jaw. He's not permitted near me, I said. That's not my rule. It's the court's. Exactly, Dad said, gesturing to chairs. Your mother made pot roast. I stayed standing. We're family, Mom said, sliding into her lifelong tone of velvet pressure. What will the neighbors think? Florus against Florus. Dad nodded like a judge. We've spoken at length with Tyler. He's ready to apologize. Tyler stepped forward on cue. I'm truly sorry. I was in a bad place. I'm doing anger management. I've changed. The words were too rounded, polished in their bathroom mirror. What outcome are you angling for? I asked. Mom reached for bread. Once he apologizes, you drop the charges. Your father covers anything insurance didn't. Insurance already covered the damages, I said. Dad explained gently as if to a child. It's the criminal record. He's lost 3 jobs because of it. I opened my bag and placed pages on the table. Photos of his truck circling my property 4 times last week. A time-stamped shot of him idling 27 minutes outside my house yesterday. Screenshots of messages from numbers created after I blocked his main line. They didn't need to read the words to know. Their faces gave up the truth. They'd known anyway. Real amends would honor the court order, I said. Real change would mean getting a job, any job, and paying restitution himself, not with your checkbook. It would mean behavior, not speeches. Mom clutched her throat. Family is above all. Respect is above all, I said. Consequences are necessary. There it is, Tyler snapped, mask slipping. High and mighty. Think your plants make you better. Dad stood, reaching for his wallet like a fire extinguisher. I'll write a check now. Any amount. Let's end this ugliness. It was never about money, I said. Not once. When you can honor my boundaries, legal and personal, I'll be here, I added. Reconciliation needs changed behavior, not reheated lines. Tyler's face twisted. You self-righteous, Tyler. Mom gasped, moving toward him instead of me. Dad flung his hands. See what your stubbornness causes. If you just forgive, like you taught him to expect. I asked softly. When has he ever truly faced consequences? The question landed. Mom's face crumpled under the weight of decades. Dad looked small without his paper solutions. I turned for the door with Michael beside me. Voices rose behind us, but the night outside was clean. Stars salted the sky. I breathed for the first time since arrival. You okay? He asked, pulling away from the curb. In the mirror my childhood house shrank to a doll's facade. Yes, I said, surprised to feel I meant it. Morning sun slants through new skylights, scattering prisms over smooth concrete and ordered rows. A year can turn wreckage into abundance. Ferns curtain the corners. Orchids arc like question marks answered. Succulents tessellate in quiet geometry. Miss Flores. Elaine stands in the doorway, clipboard in hand, our newest hire helping wrangle a client list that won't stop growing. The Martin account is ready for signature. I check my watch, 7:30 and humming already. Thanks. Before the stand-up, I say, adjusting a drip line feeding herbs for Chef Anthony next week. In my office, reclaimed wood, big windows, I pause at the framed business plan. The paper's slightly yellowed, the handwriting still bold. Yesterday the loan officer emailed congratulations. 70% paid ahead of schedule, refinance at a rate that would have been a fantasy last year. My phone lights. Michael. Dinner to celebrate the refi? I've got something planned. Warmth spreads that has nothing to do with the sun. What began as professional respect has rooted into something that grows on admiration, not obligation. Dr. Watts would call it earned bonds. Weekly sessions taught me the difference between ties you inherit and bonds you build. Last month I said Tyler's name without shaking. Not forgiveness exactly, more like removing an invasive before it chokes the bed. The door chime rings. Through the glass I see Mom step out of her silver sedan, holding a small terracotta pot like an offering. These days she texts politely and schedules coffee, learning the shape of my boundaries. Dad hasn't visited. He's waiting for an apology I won't give for guarding what's mine. Tyler finished his service hours with performance but no transformation. Last week he applied at Harrison's Garden Center, claiming extensive greenhouse experience. The owner called me to verify. He didn't realize how many bridges I've built here. Good morning. I call as the team gathers for our huddle, faces bright with chosen purpose. After I walk the perimeter. Cameras wink discreetly. New beds riot with color where ruin once sprawled. The client whose order Tyler destroyed now places triple the volume, impressed by how we handled the worst day and what came after. Michael arrives as the light gets soft, fidgeting with something in his pocket. Walk? He asks, guiding me through the largest house. Under an arbor of roses I propagated from cuttings, he kneels. Question and ring gleam together. That night our people crowd long tables between flowered aisles, laughing, toasting. Family chosen and earned. When I look up, a new sign hangs above the doorway. Flores Family Greenhouse. The name stayed, the meaning ripened. Family isn't just blood. It's who shows up at dawn with gloves and coffee. It's accountability, not cover. And what I've grown will keep thriving season after season, rooted in boundaries and strength, not obligation.